To the Moscow Raceway, it's time for the championship race in FIA GT1's and the FIA's first visit to Russia. You might be able to tell from the position here at camera one, but it's absolutely poured it down since we had the qualifying race earlier on this morning, and as a result there's no doubt about which tyres they're going to be starting on. Track temperature 9.4 degrees centigrade, the air temperature 8.3 degrees centigrade. It is very chilly here in Moscow. My name is Jack Nichols. We've got John Watson down on the grid at the moment. He'll be joining me in the commentary box a little bit later on today. And we will be bringing you coverage of this hour-long session. You can see not much rain at this present time, but the circuit is unquestionably soaked. And in these kind of conditions, where you can see the faithful Russian fans taking advantage of their first ever purpose-built racetrack. Let's have a look at the Moscow Raceway then. 15 corners, about 4 kilometers long, give or take a couple of meters. Got a long back straight that in itself is almost a kilometer. And there you can see the start-finish line going down into the first corner, the left-hander at turn one. It winds itself in around itself in the end of the first sector. And sector 2 is quite fun, and then a very, very quick sector 3 with only one corner of note in. So our grid for this one is the finishing results from the first qualifying race that we had this morning, and Stefano Telli and Laurens Vanthoor won that race, and as a result Stefano Telli will be starting on pole position, and alongside him will be the 38 car of Markus Winkelhock. You can see on the left hand side the Orlinkel Munich Motorsports Mercedes SLS. That was Ortelli. You could just see on the right hand side number 32. Here's how the championship points are standing coming into this weekend. Basseng and Winkelhock, after their success in the qualifying race, closed the gap down to just 10 points between them and Bartels and Berman. Dusseldorp and Makowiecki not out of it yet, nor are Jaeger and Pastorelli, but things are starting to slip away from them. As far as the team's championship is concerned, it's still pretty close there as well. As we may have imagined at the start of the year, Orlinkel and Vita for One battling it out for honours overall, with Belgian Audi Club in third. So there is in 11th place on the grid Aman Ibrahim and Benjamin Lariche. You can see Benjamin Lariche standing by the side of the car there. It's Aman Ibrahim strapped into the machine, and the Ford GT will be starting down in 11th position after retiring early on, unfortunately. There is Benjamin. No, thought he might give us a little wave, but obviously not. Just in front of them in 10th place is Jelmer Berman and Michael Bartels. Let's hear from Michael Bartels.
Michael Bartels, you came here leading the Drivers' Championship. What's happened?
Well, the weekend so far was not the most smooth one, but okay, now it's the main race where you can collect the most points. So we have to come back in our normal procedure. The conditions are of course not so easy. Also this morning in the qualifying race was not so easy, but now we are trying our best to go back in a good range of points to defend our lead.
Now the conditions are much wetter now than they were for the qualifying race. Is that an advantage or even just a more bigger disadvantage?
It's difficult to say because the track temperature is so low. I think we have only 8 degrees, so I think it's depending how good you can get the tire working, and then if the tire is working, how long it lasts consistent. So I think for everybody it's again new conditions, but I think maybe it's not our best conditions we could choose. All
right, Michael, look forward to you coming through the field.
Thank you.
No escaping the anthem here at the Moscow Raceway. Very, very loud and effective PA system they have put in place here as well, which keeps the fans up to date with what's happening in the race. As I say, GT1's first visit here to the Moscow Raceway. We're about, well, estimates range from 60 to 80 kilometers out of Moscow. And it's this Vita for One racing team BMW car that's leading the championship with its V8 engine producing 515 brake horsepower. That's the car leading the championship, but that's the car that's really struggling this weekend. This car got the fastest lap of the race in the qualifying race. That was because Tony Verlander came in and put slicks on when he took over. And so as a result, when the track got dry towards the end, he was absolutely on it. But They ended up finishing in 9th place, so ultimately their gamble to slicks did not pay off at all. And there is Tony Verlander in the car, ready to go for this one. He's going to be starting the car and then handing over to his teammate Felipe Salaquada. And there's the other Ferrari, 8th and 9th place for Ferrari, which has to be a huge disappointment for them after they started the qualifying race in 3rd place, 3rd and 8th respectively. And then the 8th and 9th, a real disappointment. Enzo Eid, you can see in the car, ready to start that 8th position machine. And then we've got the other Vita for One Racing BMW. Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff and Matthias Lauda fared a little better. There you can see Bartels on the right, Matthias Lauda in the middle, and Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff all booted and suited and ready to go for what is unquestionably going to be a wet race as the Belgians roll the flags up at the front. Belgian team, German car. Let's hear from Alvaro Parent then. He's going to be starting in 6th place.
Fred Makowiecki, you had a storming drive in the second. Alvaro Parent, you had a storming drive after all the difficulties at the start of the race. What's going to happen now?
Well, I hope I have a storming first stint, but we'll see. You know, it's full wet condition. Before it was a drying track. Now it's a full wet. Let's see if the modifications we did to the car will work and see if we're competitive now on the first stint.
Now, we know the car is fantastic in the dry. Why is it not fantastic in the rain?
Well, I don't know that yet. We're going to see now. And it was good, certainly, on a wet, drying track on the first race. So why not now on full wet? We'll see. We'll see now.
I'm waiting to see what you can do. Many thanks, Alvaro.
So Alvaro Parent will be starting in that 6th position. The race will be starting behind the safety car. We've just had it confirmed. So that means that for the 2nd time today, the safety car will take them out, give them a few laps, and then pull into the pit lane, and then the race will get underway. There's the 37 car. Thomas Jaeger will start that one. There you can see him all ready to go, and he will be starting in 5th position. So a decent effort from him and Nicky Pastorelli, but they still just haven't been able to quite match the finishing results this season of their teammates, Bassing and Winkelhock. They can match the pace, but once the race comes, they can't quite shake it out and end up in as strong a position as their teammates. You can see all the fans on the right-hand side, or the VIPs, I should say, with all their brollies up in the VIP viewing balconies. 4th place, the #1 car. Fred Makowiecki will be starting that car. And that's a machine that is in contention for the championship, but an awful weekend in the Slovakia ring where they picked up no points. Possibly will put them out of contention in their McLaren MP4-12C, which is a mighty little car. V8 3.8 litre engine, producing 500 brake horsepower, but it's very aerodynamically efficient as well as the McLaren. You can see all the diffuser underneath the rear of the car, and the shape of the car is all designed for maximum aerodynamic effect. So they'll be 4th on the grid. 3rd place on the grid is going to be Frank Stippler.
Frank, the conditions are much worse than this morning. Any help for you?
I don't think so, because we're trying to find out the aquaplaning areas, and end of the first session, and had some gearbox problems, so I hope that we can.
Well, the Audi team quite insistent that the engine get fired up there, because we're approaching the end of the grid walk, and I think Watty may have been the last person off after that grid walk. So good stuff from our intrepid reporter John Watson down there. He'll now be making his way back up through the rain to the commentary position, and looking at the weather, he may well be with me by the time the race starts, because we're going to have at least a couple of laps under the safety car, probably 2 would be my guess. So the race start, as we had this morning, will be slightly anticlimactic, as safety car starts always are, but it's probably the best idea considering that conditions keep changing. We had a completely dry day yesterday, for free practice and qualifying. Then we had mildly damp this morning, and now we've got full-on wet this afternoon. So away we go. The clock starts now as they pull away. As you can see, we're under yellow flag conditions. And we will be behind the safety car for at least, I'm going to guess, for at least 2 laps. Hopefully they'll then decide it's safe to bring the safety car in. Let's have a look at how the grid lines up then. It's on pole position, Stefano Telli. Alongside him, Markus Winkelhock in the Mercedes. Stippler and Makowiecki are on the second row of the grid. Third row of the grid, we've got Thomas Jaeger and Alvaro Parent. Behind them, the first of the BMWs, Nicky Mermelhoff and Enzo Eid alongside him. Tony Verlander and Jelmer Berman in 9th and 10th position, with 11th place going the way of Aman Ibrahim and Benjamin Lariche. Both newcomers to the Ford GT this weekend. It's Aman Ibrahim's first drive in a GT car, so he's got quite a learning curve. Pace wasn't too bad, but they just got caught up with incidents in the qualifying race this morning. Now you can see the first of the GT3 cars. Once again, it's Maximilian Buch in that 101 Heiko Gravity Charouz team car that has taken pole position there. Second on the grid is Alessandro Pierguidi in the Ester Motorsports entry. So the Russian entry in GT, one of the Russian entries anyway in GT3. We've also got the Russian Bears Motorsport car. But up at the front in GT1, it's all about the battle for the championship, because after this race, we've only got 2 more rounds to go. So every point now is absolutely crucial. The points have been crucial all season, but now we've been able to figure out who exactly is in the title fight. And really, to all intents and purposes, it looks like a fairly straight fight between Bartels and Berman at Vita1 Racing and Basseng and Winkelhock at All Inkle. Dusseldorp and Makowiecki are now dark horses, I would suggest, and Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli are even darker horses. So they come down the back straight. Depends what Telly and Van Thor can do here today as well. They could quite easily... Oh, and that's Mika Vähämäki. Has he dropped that behind the safety car? Certainly looks like he may have done. He drives through the grass. Max Nilsson retired that car earlier on, or has he pulled off? He's looking pretty desperate inside the cockpit, isn't he? Well, we'll definitely keep an eye out on that, because currently Mika Vähämäki and Max Nilsson are 5th in the FIA GT3 European Championship. I just wonder if he's... Well, they're trying to push it back out, so unless he's trying to find reverse, unless he's driven it in and then ended up getting too close to the Armco barrier and will then be pushed back out. But he must have dropped it by himself, because it doesn't look as though there's any damage to the car. Well, there's an incident in FIA GT3 Europe. Will we get similar drama in the GT1 World Championship? There is Bartels and Berman. They had the strange thing about Bartels. Oh, there we go. Vähämäki's managed to get back onto the circuit. Now he needs to get first gear. He does get it, and away he goes. So he should be able to join the back of the safety car queue, unless he's got a problem dropping mud and grass over the circuit. But that's not really going to be the worst of the driver's problems. So yeah, he must have just dropped it by himself by the looks of things. And up into turn 9 they come. This is what, their second lap behind the safety car, so we'll keep an eye out on the safety car to see if it's got its lights out. This kind of speed, the drivers can't really learn too much about the circuit. There doesn't appear to be too much standing water, as you can see, through not much spray, because the circuit itself doesn't seem too damp to start racing. Certainly by the looks of John Watson, there is still some rain falling as he comes back into the commentary box, as Michael Bartels watches on. They've had a strange weekend, Bartels and Berman, because Berman was about to set the fastest time of the weekend when his engine blew on Friday, on Saturday in qualifying. But then since then, they just haven't been able to find the pace as they weave along the back straight. Safety car still out, as you can see. So we'll have another lap behind it as they come down into the final corner. And John is back up here with us. And John, what are the conditions like out there?
Well, as you can see, they're damp, if not really wet. Drivers are concerned about standing water, but from what little I've seen, looks reasonable, and I think it's probably about time to set them free. They're well enough spaced out, so there shouldn't be too many visibility problems on the opening laps.
We'll wait and see when the race director decides to bring the safety car in. Oliver, the race director, is a very sensible man, and I'm pretty sure he'll make a decent and reasonable decision. He wants to let these drivers race. These drivers will be wanting to race, especially as they only have their half-hour stint. The pit stop window will open with 35 minutes to go.
It'll be interesting to see now the track is fully wet, as opposed to the qualifying race where it was that scummy, slick type of wet weather condition, whether cars that appeared to struggle primarily to get grip, mainly through tyre temperature, whether they will fare any better or not in these much wetter conditions. And sometimes it is the case where a car is sliding and it isn't able to generate bite from the tyre. Once the tyre starts to work, that deep water tyre, the deep tread block, once it starts to get lateral movement in it, it will warm up. So whether the McLaren, who Alvaro Parent was sort of slightly loath to say why, I know he knows what the problem is, but he works for McLaren as well as drives a McLaren and FIA GT1, and he knows what to say and when to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. So 53 minutes to go. The pit stop window, as I say, will open with 35 minutes to go, and there you can see the GT3 field at the back of this pack. And there is the Russian Bears motorsport car, the 104 machine, driven at the moment by Sergei Ryabov. And he is going to be starting down at the rear end of the GT3 European field as the rain continues to come down.
Yes, and the lights have gone out on the safety car, so we're now seeing Stefano Telli backing off and getting the field a little bit more bunched up. He has got control of this race. It is a race, even though it's been run under the safety car for 3 laps. It is a motor race, and Stef Dusseldorp, well, he's obviously been downtown Moscow market buying cheap and cheerful headgear, and it, I must say, it enhances his look.
Yeah, I was close to buying one of them, but after seeing what Stef looks like, I'm glad I didn't. Down into turn 15, then the race is about to get underway. Stefano Telli has lit it already. He's already gone. And the race, well, proper is about to get underway. 52 minutes remaining as the green flag falls, and off has gone Nicky Manmanoff at the very, well, final corner before he even gets to the first corner. So he loses a couple of positions as they come through for the first time. Difficult to see anything in this spray. Telli ran wide and he's lost the lead. Marcus Winkelhock is through into the lead of the race here in GT1. The Ford GT goes wide as well. He's lost a position to the front-running GT3 car. But in the lead of this race now is the 38 car of Marcus Winkelhock. He took advantage of Telli going wide at turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, unusual. Telli usually is bulletproof when it comes to driving in difficult conditions. Now coming under pressure from Frank Stippler directly behind him. So, and the McLaren of Makowiecki, that 3-car bunch having their own little battle halfway round on what is the first lap. Oh, and big problem for the Lamborghini.
Yeah, that's the 111 car, which is being started this time by David Mengsdorf. That looks like a reliability problem. We've also got
Ford.
Is that one? No, I think that's
Ferrari?
a Russian Bear Ferrari from GT3. That's a bit of a guess.
I wonder, has the Lamborghini and the Ferrari had a collision?
Possibly.
Where the Lamborghini's been punted in the side with the radiators in the side of the car. It may be that's the steam that we're seeing.
Well, that could well be the case, but now we've got Fred Makowiecki all over the back then of Telli with Stippler behind. So does that mean Makowiecki has got past?
Parent's just got up through as well. He's just got past the second of the Al Inkel Mercedes.
Yeah, so the 2 McLarens are on a bit of a move. Also on a move is Marcus Winkelhock. He's loving these wet conditions. There is Parent trying to go around the outside of Frank Stippler, and he's managed to pull it off.
Well,
good move.
Alvaro Parent is the driver of all that is making the most moves. He's got the momentum. He had enough clear space between himself and the cars around him to get that momentum. Now coming down, looking on the inside into turn 15. visibility pretty diabolical.
It's actually easier to look out of the window, and we're about to see a Ferrari make a move up the inside, and he manages to force his way through. Does Tony Villander? Yes, he does, getting past Thomas Jaeger. Good move there. Down into turn one comes some cars, and there's a dart out to the inside, and that's Parent going up the inside. Really difficult visibility conditions here.
Our safety car is being deployed.
So that's, I reckon Parent didn't see the safety car and has had to dive to the inside in avoidance, because it looked like a very dramatic.
The entire field appeared to slow down. Visibility, you can see how much the cameras are affected. Imagine being in the enclosed cockpit of a GT car with wipers, which are efficient, but you know, in these conditions with the level of spray, there are the two cars, the Ferrari and the Lamborghini. And as you pointed out, Parent may well have been on a mission, blinded but believing in blind faith that he could get down the inside and score a few more passes. He's got out of it, he's got to drop back, but the circumstances, the visibility was diabolical coming into turn one, and while there is no apparent sign of aquaplaning as such, but the level of water now, standing water all around this 4 kilometre Moscow Raceway is considerable.
Yep, it certainly is. So, well, as we take breath as the safety car comes out again, we will see exactly how the field of play is. It'll be interesting to see if Alvaro Parent gets any penalty or exactly what happens there, because he presumably made up a couple of positions. There's Van Thor and Ollie Jarvis.
I bet you they're saying, aren't we lucky we're not doing this opening stint? But the rain is still falling. It's not as heavy as it was maybe half an hour ago, but it's just fallen during the period the cars were on the grid waiting to get this event underway, and the accumulation is a lot of standing water. So far we haven't had a problem with aquaplaning, but the run into turn one certainly looked pretty difficult when you had 3 or more cars all fighting for position into turn one.
Absolutely. So the safety car is deployed as they clear up the car of, I think it was Sergei Ryabov. Couldn't quite make sure. We'll have to absolutely confirm that, but it was definitely David Mengsdorf, and that means that Mengsdorf and Procik won't be on the podium for the first time in their GT3 European career, which is a bit of a shame for them as we approach the end of the GT3 European season. So, Fingerlock is leading, second is Fred Makowiecki, third place is Stefano Telli, fourth Alvaro Parent, fifth Frank Stippler, sixth there is number 3, which is Tony Villander. I think it was 3. So difficult to tell. The Ferraris apart. Meir Melnov almost losing it under the safety car.
Well, car coming into the pit lane. We're not sure that's one of the cars. Is that the Lamborghini? It's
the second Lamborghini.
So, look, here we see.
Here's a look at the start. Yes. So talk us through it, John. Basically, Ortelli just gets it wrong, doesn't
he? We see the BMW running wide on the exit of 15. Ortelli gets a clear run down into turn one. Appears when we get to it. We will get to it. Yeah, we are. We didn't actually see what happened in turn one, other than he actually ran wide, and that allowed the Mercedes of Markus Winkelhock to gain the momentum and go down the inside into turn 2, which is the long left-hand corner, and then sort of another brief straight before the long turn 3.
Yep. So safety car still out, 46 minutes to go, and these drivers aren't going to get an awful lot of running here before. Well, they get a lot of running behind the safety car, not much racing action before the pit stop window opens.
No, and I mean the pit stop window opens in roughly 11 minutes from now, so whether anybody will bother coming in at that early stage, bearing in mind that track conditions don't show any indication of changing, other than if you have maybe your star driver, the driver you think is more capable of dealing with difficult conditions, getting him in at the earliest opportunity. But since the majority of drivers in GT1 are all professional drivers, they're all pretty evenly matched, as opposed to the GT3 field, where you've got gold, silver and bronze star drivers, and that is an issue where if you have a gold driver in a GT3 car, you might want to get him in if he isn't in it already.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be a real interesting choice once the pit stop window comes around, but as we say, we've still got 10 minutes to go before that happens. And unless the safety car is still out, then there's no real point in pitting that soon, because you want to wait for the field to spread out. As John said, a number of reasons why there's no particular rush to get out there. So we're just waiting for those two cars to be sorted and removed. And then this race will be back underway when the safety car turns its lights off and comes into the pits, which it's not showing no sign of doing just yet as they come down the back straight here. And this is, once again, Basseng and Winkelhock. You chat to Mark Basseng at the beginning of the weekend, and he's always, oh, I don't know, we haven't got the pace. One of the BMWs coming in, that's Meir Manhoff. I wonder if he's got a problem, because he's been twitching all the way around the circuit.
Yeah, well, I noticed when he came in the pit lane there was a twitch. I don't know whether that's because there's a little run of water at that particular part of the entry into the pit lane, but something did catch his car. Here we see how wet the pit lane is, and the drivers need to be careful running down the pit lane. There's a 60-kilometre speed limit. Nevertheless, when they're coming into their pit boxes to brake that a little bit earlier, there's a better view of it. It isn't quite as bad as it looks from the other camera shot. That camera lens is pretty much saturated. As we see the car up on the jacks, they're going to change wheels and tires, but clearly there is another issue which may or may not be related. Well, look, they're looking into the brakes to see whether there's a problem. These cars, of course, got ABS brakes on them, but whether that's a problem with this particular car. There's only one wheel appears to come off the left front as Nicky Meyer-Mayhoff sits in the car, and in fact he can probably sit there for quite a reasonable amount of time, because the pace of the safety car is such that he could probably take a minute and still catch up to the tail of the field, as long as he didn't go too quickly. But they're looking to, they're working on that left front brake. And are they bleeding it? I can't believe they're bleeding the brake. I mean, this is something you did in the 50s.
Yeah, it's certainly.
But they are ABS, and whether there's a malfunction with the ABS system, or whether it's a function of water maybe getting onto the discs and giving a false read. There's so many factors that kind of a bearing on what a brake on a car in these conditions do. Remember, they've got massive air intakes to get cool air into the brakes. Frequently, teams will tape those up in these conditions to ensure brake temperature gets up to the operating level that it needs to be at, but also to keep water out, because water going onto a disc brake, you can actually, from time to time, get a film of water between the pad and the disc.
It's never handy, is it, as they come out onto the back straight. We saw Meir Manhoff struggling before the safety car even came in, going into that final corner, so obviously there is something amiss with Nicky's car, and that is just another example of the torrid season, or not season, they're having a brilliant season, but the torrid weekend that the Vita4One racing team are having, because, well, you spoke to Michael on the grid a few moments ago, and he's always pretty optimistic, but it's just not working out.
It's not, and I mean, the performance of the car certainly was there. We saw that on Saturday morning, up until the point when Hjalmar Berman had that mechanical issue, and thereafter it seemingly has put the team, principally the Bartels-Berman car, on the back foot. Safety car still out. You can see the conditions coming down pit straight, and frankly these conditions have not improved at all in the last 10 minutes, and if they felt they were sufficiently bad to put the safety car out 10 minutes ago, I can't see them changing their mind now. So the car is out for some more time, I have to say.
Well, I think the safety car came out for those two cars that we had off down at turn 3. We had the Lamborghini and the Ferrari.
BMWs are joining, by the way.
Yeah, so he's a lap down. And you can. I think once that Lamborghini gets cleared, we may be able to go back racing, because the conditions are poor, but this isn't NASCAR.
The conditions are poor, but I mean, if you're only removing two cars in the same part of a racetrack, you could, in theory, have a localized yellow flag station. They've chosen to go to a full yellow flag round the track safety car, and I think that the weather, it's on the limit, I think, for visibility. I think that was illustrated by what we saw when the safety car was deployed, when one of the McLarens, we think it was Alvaro Parent, didn't see it and dived down the inside thinking he was going to make up about 4 places and take the lead, and realised suddenly at the last minute that it was a safety car deployment.
There's Benjamin Lariche watching on, checking out the timing screens, and he seems, he's happy.
Well, he must be the only person that's happy, because everybody else must be feeling it is a bit chilly. Yes, you're right, Benjamin, but you get into that car, get a good old sweat going, and you'll soon shed off any fears of getting a chill.
So he'll be going out in the car in 5 to 10 minutes time, when his teammate there in the number 10 car, Aman Ibrahim, comes into the pits. The youngest ever A1 GP racer was Aman Ibrahim.
He was 16, I was there.
Wait, how was he?
Pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a massive step. I mean, a young guy coming from India with limited single-seater experience, and he represented Team India in that race series a number of years ago. He had ability and speed, there's no question about it, but also immaturity and youth, and he hadn't quite found the balance between all those elements.
His father, Akbar Ibrahim, was a Indian Formula 3 champion back in the day, and he's done a couple of years of Formula 2. He was in FIA Formula 2 last year, then went over to do some Indy Lights racing, and now finds himself here in his first ever GT race, because he didn't get to drive the car earlier on. A few adjustments being made to the Audi tyres as the safety car stays out for another lap.
I think what they're probably doing is lowering the pressures marginally to try and get a little bit more movement in the sidewall of the tyre to try and generate a bit more heat. Now, that's a sort of an armchair quarterback's guess, but that would probably seem a logical thing to try to do.
Yep, absolutely. It seems like that would be sensible. 4 minutes to go until this pit stop window opens, and Oliver Jarvis is already trying to get himself warmed up as best he can. Pretty tricky in these conditions. This commentary box is fairly warm, actually. I'm impressed with that. But
a lot of hot air.
Yeah. Not from me, John. Not from me. But the garages down there are going to be pretty chilly. As far as GT3 is concerned, not much movement since the start of the race, apart from that that spin for Mika Vähämäki, but we did see him get going again, so he'll be on the tail of this pack, I imagine, as they come through the left-hander at turn 4, which sends them out towards the back of the circuit. It's 4 kilometers long, as we've said, and it is quite an elongated circuit. When you look over to the far side, I mean, I can hardly see the cars over the far side of the circuit in this mist and gloom. Dusseldorp getting warmed up as well, needs to keep that hat on.
Yes, he does. Unfortunately, it doesn't do much for the rest of his body, but he's anticipating maybe an earlier pit stop than I would imagine. I would have thought that would have kept Fred Makowiecki in the car until the last moment again of that pit stop window, but Stef is ready to go in the event that Fred dives into the pits and says, "I'm in the pit lane, guys, let's go." And, you know, if you're standing there as a driver unprepared, it is inexcusable. So everybody, once the pit stop window is opening, and it's going to be opening in just under 2 minutes, has to be prepared and ready for that last-minute call from the driver in the car saying, "I'm in the pit lane."
I think we've got the lights off on the safety car, John. We'll confirm it for the next shot. But yes, lights are off on the safety car. It will be in at the end of this lap, which will be in about 10 seconds' time. And then this race will be underway with Marcus Winkelhock leading the way. Stefano Ortelli behind him. When will Fred Makowiecki behind him, then Ortelli. Winkelhock gets this race back underway after the brief safety car period, under braking for the final corner. It's Winkelhock leading, Makowiecki in second. Parenta's got a great run out of the final corner. He can't overtake Ortelli before they get to the start-finish line, and he hasn't, so there's no worries about that. But as they come down into the first corner, they all know one's gone wide. One of the Audis has gone off wide there. Is that Ortelli again? Yes, it is. Ortelli has gone wide at turn 1, and he now loses out to Frank Stippler as well as Alvaro Parent. So Ortelli, surprisingly really, struggling a little bit in these conditions.
Well, I mean, he's done it consistently, so he must know what he's doing. When you're doing it once and making a mistake, the Ferrari now crewing up the inside of the Audi of Otello, and, well, Stefano Ortelli maybe unsettled, unseated by what's taken place, and he's lost that rhythm. He'll get it back shortly. In the meantime, we've got 2 McLarens now battling, Fred Makowiecki in one car and Alvaro Parent, and I tell you, there's not a cigarette paper between them in terms of speed and ability. Alvaro Parent will want to put that car ahead of his teammate as quick as he can, and he has a look up, oh, very, very close. Managed to avoid contact at turn 9.
I thought he was going for it there. He got up the inside, but
he was going for it.
Yeah. But it's great to see the 2 teammates battling hard. And look at that, Makowiecki is not letting Parent pass at all. Parent's got a good drive though around the outside, and can he make the move stick into 12? Yes, he can. So Alvaro Parent up into second position. Makowiecki's holding it in there though up the inside. He's got a good run out, and Makowiecki is still in second place. Great battling here. This is going to allow Marcus Winkelhock to pull away a little bit. But the great thing about racing in the wet is there is grip on the outside. The inside person has the best line, the outside person has the most grip.
Well, Fred Makowiecki's driving what I'd call the Danica Patrick line, holding the bottom of the racetrack and gaining by doing so. And we're seeing that Alvaro Parent taking the high line, trying to get the speed off the top of the corner and taking it, coming down into turn 15. Who has got the best position?
Parent at the moment is in that second place. and he holds onto it as they come across the line. There is Stippler battling with Tony Villander down into turn 1 again. It's still Winkelhock in the lead. Second place now then is Alvaro Perent, but he's only just ahead of his teammate. The rest of the cars stream through. Fourth place then is Frank Stippler. Fifth place is the number 3 car of Tony Villander.
Well, I tell you, Alvaro Perent told me in the grid, I said, why does the car not perform in the rain? He said, well, we'll find out in the rain. And we know that it didn't perform particularly well initially in the qualifying race in those stamped slick conditions, but in the full rain we're seeing a totally different performance from the MP4-12Cs.
We certainly are. Alvaro Perent, surely it won't be long before he starts to close in now on Marcus Winkelhock. There was 2.5 seconds between them as they came across the line that time.
Makowiecki got a big tank slapper as he came out of turn 8 up to turn 9, and the back of the car moved one side then the other side. He managed to keep it all neat and tidy and recovered, but it just indicates how close all these cars are to the limit.
Villander close to the back of Frank Stippler. What happened to Ferraris struggling in the wet conditions? That seems to have gone out the window. The pit stop window opened about a minute ago, and now Villander's trying to get around the outside. Then he darts back to the outside to get a better run down into 13. That's the back end kicking out all over the place, keeps it all together, but Villander desperate to try and move up into that fourth place.
He's run down Marcus Winkelhock of the Mercedes.
Quickly.
Absolutely. So he has got grip, he's got bite out of the McLaren, and he's used it. He's demolished his teammate. He's about to try and do the same to Marcus Winkelhock.
Down the back straight they come into turn 15. Perent nosing towards the inside line, but he's not going to be close enough this time to make a move, but he'll try and just put off Marcus Winkelhock. Winkelhock not really troubling the apex, and the McLaren takes so much more speed through that final corner. As they come across the line, the gap was 2.5 seconds. It's now 0.4 of a second. Brilliant stuff from Alvaro Perent. He is driving fantastically. In comes Ortelli, not happy.
No, I think Ortelli's lost also the rhythm that your driver needs. Ferrari dives up the inside. Max Villander, that's a tennis player. Tony Villander, the racing driver, in the Ferrari, gets ahead of the second of the Audi's Frank Stippler.
So into the pits comes Enzo Eid, Stefan Ortelli, and also Nicky Melnoff. The BMW coming in at the far end of the pit lane. And this is the battle for the lead now. Alvaro Perent trying to send one up the inside of Marcus Winkelhock. Winkelhock on the outside holds the position for the time being as they now drop down the hill. Little look towards the inside again from Perent through the very, very fast turn 8. It's almost flat in the dry, but the back ends are stepping out as they tiptoe through it in the wet. Up the hill into 9. Perent looks up the inside. Later on the brakes than Winkelhock, and into the lead of the race goes Alvaro Perent in the Hexis McLaren.
Great overtake, Alvaro Perent worked it out. He knew where he had got the strength over the Mercedes. He used it. Been going into turn 9. I've not really seen a competitive overtake all weekend by anybody into turn 9. In these conditions where visibility is so restricted. So Alvaro Perent is the driver who's mastering what we've got here, a very, very wet Moscow Raceway.
You've got some incredible drivers in this GT1 field. I mean, if Fred Makowiecki there in the second McLaren is an absolute star, an impeccable GT record, but Alvaro Perent is destroying him in the same car. This is an excellent performance from Perent as they come down the back straight again. And look how much he's pulled out over Marcus Winkelhock, a former Formula 1 driver, in just a few corners' time. Perent then on the brakes. He'll try and build up as big a lead as he possibly can before he hands over to Gregoire de Moustier. But now Marcus Winkelhock's mirrors are going to be filled by one of his championship rivals, really, Fred Makowiecki.
Well, Alvaro Perent, we're sort of singing his praises. Part of the reason is he is an outstanding young driver in junior formulas. He is also a part of the McLaren operation. He has done many, many miles in this race car, and he's now getting the opportunity to illustrate just what a fine driver he is. We know how strong Fred Makowiecki is in the McLaren. We know how great Marcus Winkelhock is in all forms of motor racing. He did do a brief step in a period in Formula 1, but primarily it's been in and around GTs and DTM as a driver change takes place. So
Thomas Jaeger handing over to Nicky Pastorelli. And unsurprisingly, wet tyres going on there. No real choice there, but Alvaro Perent has rocketed on up the road.
It's going to be interesting to see how Fred Makowiecki can deal with the Mercedes. Again, the back of the car stepping out, coming through turn 8. How he can deal. He's going to look up the inside. He saw what happened previously. He's done it again.
Yep, good move from Makowiecki. Winkelhock trying to get the cutback, but he can't quite manage it. So now McLaren, after qualifying first and second, big slide from Makowiecki. That loses him a little bit of momentum. And also Tony Verlander's going very quickly indeed. He did a 1 minute 56.5 on that last lap, which was quicker than anyone.
Well, Tony Verlander had the fastest lap in the qualifying race by a substantial margin, but he thinks he's back in Finland driving on snow and studded tires. He's just chucking it in, left foot braking. You know how Finns speak.
Verlander really pushing hard now, ultimately in the battle over second place, but I think Makowiecki's going to disappear. But as I say, Verlander was the quickest man of anyone on that last lap. Parenta's gone purple in sectors 1 and 2, so he's about to set the fastest lap of the race as they come through the spray down into turn 15. Into the pits comes Winkelhock. Winkelhock into the pits. He will hand over now to Marc Basseng. Verlander will stay out for as long as possible, as I think will Makowiecki and Alvaro Parent.
Well, you can imagine
Parent now has a 6.4 second lead.
I mean, he's just got to build as much as he possibly can. We know that Grégoire de Moussier, a lovely chap and all that, but he is not at the level of the 3 other drivers in the team. So they've got to keep Alvaro Parent in that car. Interesting that the Mercedes comes in. Well, I suppose there's 4 minutes remaining before the pit lane closes. So Marc Basseng gets into the car and these pit stops, the quickest we saw again in the qualifying race was about 52 seconds flat, which is a pretty impressive time to change 4 tires with 2 guys doing it, and the driver change as well. So they'll be looking for a time in the middle 50s at worst to try and gain position from a very strong pit stop.
So Thomas Jaeger, Nicky Pastorelli at the wheel now of the 37 Mercedes is going to come out a long way behind, actually, his teammate who pulls out, and Jaeger is in a duel with the number 4 Ferrari of Francesco Castellacci after those two came into the pits right together. So now, how quickly can Marc Basseng get up to speed, and when will McLaren and Ferrari decide to pit their cars? Well, we've already suggested it'll be at the last possible moment.
They've got 3 minutes remaining, so they'll do one more lap, I suspect. Depending where they are on the track, they may complete this lap they're on and go on to one more, or if they're just beginning a lap, then they'll probably come in at the end of that lap. But you can see Tony Verlander is right on the gearbox of that McLaren of Fred Makowiecki, and I just wonder whether the team might opt to bring Makowiecki in now and get that pit stop over and done with, and then let Parent come in at the last minute. One car is coming in, I think that will be Fred Makowiecki.
Yes.
I should be a team manager, a strategist. I mean, it's not rocket science if I can work it out.
No, that's true. Into the pits comes Fred Makowiecki then. He's going to hand over to Stef Dusseldorp. Those guys need to cross the road quickly, because in comes the number 1 McLaren, currently 3rd place in the championship, still in with a chance of winning the championship. Also in comes Frank Stippler to hand over to Oliver Jarvis. And in comes the Hexis car. Pretty quick with their pit stops at Hexis. And Dusseldorp will get in once the door is free from the wheel change.
Yeah, the airline is seeming to sort of stopping the door getting opened and taking a little bit of time. Makowiecki to get out. Stef Dusseldorp, a much taller driver. He needs a bit more space in the car. They take a seat filler out for Makowiecki to let Dusseldorp get in. And now cars off the jacks, fire the baby up. Come on, Stef, get it going. You've got a clear run out of the pit lane.
So Dusseldorp exits the pits. He was battling with this 38 car of Marc Basseng, but he's going to come out comfortably in front, actually. Marc Basseng not really getting up to speed very quickly.
In fact, Ollie Jarvis is probably going to benefit as well. Certainly, he'll come out behind the Mercedes, that of Marcus Winkelhock, but he's not going to, Marc Basseng, but he's going to get ahead of the second Mercedes, and that, that's the second of the Ferrari.
Yeah, it's Castellacci, but these two are already up into their zone and into the racing speed and know what the circuit's like, whereas this is going to be a voyage of exploration for Oliver Jarvis. As they come through turn 3 now, Jarvis is going to get swamped very quickly by these two. How quickly can Ollie get up to speed? That's going to be the interesting thing to watch out for. Down the back straight then comes a selection of cars. Our race leader, that's who we were looking for.
Yeah, but
and Alvaro Parent comes in.
Yeah, he's going to get across the line with about 40 seconds before that window was closed there. Grégoire de Moussier with the luminous orange and yellow helmet about to get in again. It's a pressure point for de Moussier. He's getting a car that's in the lead, being driven impeccably by Alvaro Parent, and he knows that basically all he can do is try and just do the best he can, and I know he will, but it's never going to be as good as Alvaro Parent.
Into the pits they come. Hexis need a swift pit stop here. Demoustier in, Parent out. There's the driver they're battling ultimately for the lead of this race. Don't forget, we've also presumably, yes, we've got the number 3 Ferrari in as well, of Tony Verlander, handing over to Felipe Salaquada. So they're not out of the battle for second place. Can the McLaren get started? Yes, they appear to have cured those problems, which is good news. And this is going to be absolutely comfortable for Grégoire Demoustier. He comes out now as his teammate rounds the final corner. So Grégoire Demoustier comfortably leading. Who's going to be in second place? That's going to be the close one, because here comes Felipe Salaquada down the pit lane. The number 1 car of Stef Dusseldorp comes into turn 1, gets the car stopped, swings it in, runs a little bit wide, and he's in second place still. So McLaren 1-2, Ferrari third.
Grégoire Demoustier was fortunate because the timing of that pit stop has got him out in effectively clear rain as opposed to clear air, but he's not having to battle to get ahead of cars that are slower cars. But look, you can just see how tricky those conditions are as the Ferrari now with Salaquada, Felipe Salaquada, is slightly more stable.
Yep. So into second place then, or still in second place, is Stef Dusseldorp in the number 1 Hexis Racing McLaren. Now, can he begin to chip away at the advantage that Grégoire Demoustier has in front of him? Equally, what kind of pace can Felipe Salaquada find as he comes up the hill into turn 9? How's things going with the battle behind? Well, there's Marc Basseng, Nicky Pastorelli and Francesco Castellacci. They're all running pretty much together. They've all managed to get past Oliver Jarvis, who we said might get swamped. He's been swamped and overtaken. Yeah,
I think that what we're seeing at the front of the field, the front 3 cars have got the second driver effectively in each of those drivers and in each of those cars. The prime drivers were in at the start, and that's why we saw such powerful drives from those 3 drivers. Now what we're seeing is the slightly less high end of the driver market, and they're looking not to make mistakes, just to consolidate and try and bring the car home. 23 minutes remaining.
Francesco Castellacci looking pretty racy, taking the karting line a lot more than those 2 in front. Basseng is struggling. There's Thomas Jaeger, not particularly happy with how the car was feeling, or something along those lines. But now here's his teammate Nicky Pastorelli trying to pass Marc Basseng going down into turn 15. Can't do it just yet, but Basseng gets out of shape on the brakes. Surely that'll be Pastorelli through into third. It is, and he pushes Basseng off onto the grass, and as a result loses a position to the Ferrari. He's not going to be a popular man.
I think it could be a P45 in the post phase soon for that little move. Not only did he lose the position to his teammate, but he let the Ferrari get through as well, and that is a no-no.
Yeah, Marc Basseng, I imagine, will be quite frustrated.
Well, not just that, the car looks less stable than the sister car does of Nicky Pastorelli.
Look, there's the snap that gets out of shape, but then Pastorelli gets through and just mercilessly, really, pushes him off the road.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a puff envelope on the floor of your flat in Germany is imminent.
Here come our race leaders. Grégoire Demoustier and Stef Dusseldorp behind, and Stef Dusseldorp is definitely catching Grégoire Demoustier. He's taken 2.5 seconds out of the lead in the first sector. In the first sector, he's taking 2.5 seconds out of Demoustier.
Frankly, I don't think anybody in the team would be disappointed or surprised. They just want Grégoire Demoustier to bring this car home, ideally in a podium position, which he's more than capable of doing. But you'd imagine the Stef Dusseldorp, Fred Makowiecki partnership is the better balanced partnership. For Alvaro Parent, he is clearly head and shoulders above his teammate, but sometimes, you know, you have to accept that to make things work. Look at the lights flashing. Stef Dusseldorp doing everything possible to distract the young Frenchman, to force him into looking backwards rather than paying attention and concentration on what's going ahead. Now he moves up in the inside. Has Demoustier given him room, or as he realises he's even there? Whatever it is, he's gotten through.
Stef Dusseldorp takes the lead of the race with 20 minutes to go. There's his teammate Fred Makowiecki on the pit wall. A win is exactly what they need, especially with Berman and Bartels not scoring strongly. This would be very interesting for the championship, in fact, because I think Bartels and Berman, if things stay how they are, would still lead the championship just about. And here's and there's a big collision down there at turn 1.
That was the nearest thing to snooker you'll ever see in motor racing.
That's Mika Vähämäki getting involved, and he was really, well, the Heiko Mercedes are in all sorts of bother, because now here's the second Heiko car in GT3, the championship leading car, now in the hands of Dominic Baumann, getting all sorts of bashy with, I think, Michael Lyons it was. Yes, it was Michael Lyons, and now we can see the 105 car.
Right rear in the Ferrari has broken the wishbone, has broken the wheel, is towing out by about 150 degrees.
It was Václav Maliv who was the one who slid into the Heiko Mercedes down there at turn 1. So let's have a look again. Václav Maliv is going to arrive on the scene backwards, basically, whether he's got it out of shape himself or whatever.
Well, he's travelling about 10-15 miles an hour quicker at the point where he hit the Mercedes. I mean, that was a massive smack in the side of the Mercedes. It pushed it the best part of 35-40 metres off track.
That means that Nee Amorim is now leading GT3 Europe, but back in GT1 there's plenty of action to be worried about. This is the battle over the final it's over 4th position. Nicky Pastorelli ahead of Francesco Castellacci. Felipe Salaquada's just set the fastest middle sector of anyone in this race so far. So that number 3 Ferrari's on form. There's a white flag which suggests that that's Václav Maliv coming back to the pits.
Yeah, limping back.
Whoa,
and,
look at that.
With the car, the right rear, virtually towing the whole car one way and another.
But here comes Castellacci up the inside now of Nicky Pastorelli to move up into 4th place. Pastorelli gets the cutback, and Castellacci wasn't sharp enough for that. Needed to either park it on the apex or get back across to the inside quicker. As it is, the positions stay as they are. Pastorelli 4th, Castellacci 5th.
Yeah, that was good driving by Nicky Pastorelli. He saw the Ferrari making the lunge up the inside. He used the ability to cut back under the Ferrari, who was struggling for bite as it ran up to the top of the track. Let's look at it again. There you see Pastorelli on the left, and the Mercedes, the Ferrari, struggling to slow down. Then it just washes itself up to the top of the racetrack, still off the throttle, at which point Nicky Pastorelli's got his foot buried in it. The ABS and the Mercedes-Benz giving them maximum traction that they can think about, and he's probably playing on the dial saying, I don't want this much traction control, I want to control the car with my right foot.
18 minutes to go here in the first ever race weekend in an FIA World Championship in Russia. And it's the GT1 World Championship that's giving us a pretty exciting race. Stef Dusseldorp is now leading. He taking the lead away from his teammate a couple of laps ago. And this is going to move them up in the championship to somewhere in the region of 107 points, which would ultimately leave them about 15 points off the top of the championship. This battle continues. Castellacci now looking up the inside. Has he got the overlap going into 13? Yes, he has. But can he get his job done this time? The back end flies out again. But this time he should have made it stick.
Yes, I think he's got his position at the part of the racetrack where the Mercedes can't come back. We've got now this long straight up to turn 15. But it looks like the Ferrari has done sufficient to stave off the attack from the Mercedes. Still running pretty much in the middle of the racetrack, now peeling over to the right, and will take the normal braking area. There's a line with which there's marker boards as well, but principally to get the entry to the corner, to get the best exit speed off the corner. The other fact that's interesting is that Grégoire de Mouzier has only 5 seconds of an advantage over Salaquada in the Ferrari. That gap is a closing gap. We need to keep an eye on that.
Into turn 1 they come to start the 20th lap of the race with 16 minutes to go. And will Castellacci be closing in on his teammate? I don't think so. Dusseldorp is still the quickest man out there. That last lap was a 53.0. Salaquada managed a 53.4, but he's lapping 1.4 seconds quicker than de Moustier in front, and he's only 3 seconds behind. So the battle for second place is going to be one to watch in a lap or two. Marc Basseng, though, in the Alinkel Mercedes, really struggling and is now falling back into the grips of the Audis by the looks of things.
Well, I noticed when Thomas Jaeger got out of his car and handed over Nicky Pastorelli, he was making those sort of hand movements that a driver would indicate that either it's a traction control issue, that it's not coming in and out smoothly enough, or it's too aggressive or something. And I just wonder, is that the similar problem that Marc Basseng? It makes for a car that's unpredictable and unstable. Consequently, you're never confident enough to be able to commit to a corner, and particularly to get back onto the throttle.
Yep, absolutely. The Mercedes have been all right in the wet so far this year, but mainly average. They haven't won a wet race so far this season. There you can see the battle for second place just below, just going out of camera shot as we now watch the battle for fourth place, which is a tiny bit tighter. Great battles going on everywhere here at the Moscow Raceway. Into 15. And Castellacci isn't close enough yet to the back of Pastorelli as they come into the left-hander. So it's Pastorelli then. He's back into fourth place. Yeah, so that's what's happened. They're shifting around all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I think just it's a question of one part of the racetrack suits one car more than the other, and then the other is able to make the switch back. As we see the two Audis, who really we thought might be the dominant manufacturer in these much wetter conditions than this morning, and Stefano Telli really blew the whole deal in the opening lap, and they've never quite recovered from that.
No, they don't appear to have the pace in the wet conditions, do they? But they've got more pace at the moment than Marc Basseng in the Mercedes. Whoa, big step out from Basseng as he comes through turn 3. He's really having to work hard.
Yeah, you can see on the lap 18, minus 1.2, minus 0.9, minus 0.5. So they're taking on average half a second or so out of the Mercedes every lap. But of course, the difficulty is catching and then overtaking.
Up the hill they come into turn 9. It is Marc Basseng in that car, I'm pretty sure. I just think I think he hasn't switched over the transponder, so the timing screens are still saying, yeah, the timing screens are still coming up with Winkelhock. But I can assure you it's Marc Basseng at the wheel of that car, and it's Ollie Jarvis at the wheel of the car behind, having taken over from Frank Stippler, and then it's Lawrence Vanthor behind him. So the three of them really all closing up. They're all getting sideways as they come down. That's a little look up the inside from Jarvis late in the day, makes it through.
Yeah, but that was almost as if the door had been opened by Marc Basseng, and again a little bit of contact between the two cars as they come through turn 14. Strange entry, but it was the exit out of 13 where the Mercedes actually went into what I call a proper power throttle control slide. Again, giving me thoughts that there's something within the traction control that Mercedes are not entirely comfortable with.
Into the final corner comes Basseng. Little tentative look towards the inside, but nowhere near close enough. Now we've got this battle for second place that we thought might develop. Grégoire de Moustier in the Hexis McLaren ahead of the number 3 car of Philippe Salaquada, the AF Corsa Ferrari 458. There you can see that it's been a second and a half every lap. So where can Salaquada find the room, find the position to make it past?
Same old story. You've got momentum, you can catch anybody you like, get behind them in the spray. In reality, the Ferrari with Salaquada in it is the quicker of the two partnerships, but nonetheless Grégoire de Moustier is doing what he has to do, driving a strong, clean race, not making mistakes, and you know, if Salaquada gets impatient and tries to do something a bit drastic, 12 minutes of this race remaining, he's not under pressure to do it. The only pressure will be from behind if anybody starts to catch these two. Doesn't look like it at the minute.
Now they've got a 12-second advantage over Nicky Pastorelli behind them, so I think it will just be a self-contained fight for the remaining 12 minutes of this race. Makowiecki looking not too concerned, really. Obviously, Hexis wanted to win the team's championship, but I think Makowiecki's main concern will be his teammate, who currently has a 10-second lead at the front of the field. Down the back straight they come. He's not quite close enough. Here's a look at some action between Castellacci and Pastorelli again.
I think this is where we saw Pastorelli actually got ahead of Castellacci. That was about 3 laps ago, but we're just fitting it in just to give you an idea of what's gone on. Again, this battle for second place. Ferrari trying to find a way down into turn 1, but the Ford precludes any impetuous opportunities down into turn 1. Then this long sweeping left-hander at turn 2. Not a great deal you can do. It's more about just positioning to ensure that when you come off the sequence of corners at turn 4, then the run through 5, 6 and then 7 and 8 are sort of almost not a corner. But the Ferrari is challenging. It's going to give Grégoire de Moustier more headaches. Again, looks to find a way up on the inside, but not advisable at the minute.
Good defensive driving so far from de Moustier. Hasn't been pushed into a mistake by Philippe Salaquada. down through 8. Little twitch as he comes through 8. Then up the hill over this kind of drying line that you're starting to see. Salaquada always has a little feint to the inside at 9, but it hasn't put de Moustier off yet. He's desperate, no doubt, to make it a McLaren 1-2, as we had in Navarra back in May. I think we were in Navarra. And now they come out onto the, well, almost onto the back straight. We've got these 2 left-handers to go before then. But de Moustier, it's going to be a big ask for him to hold off for 10 minutes, isn't it?
Well, he's done a good job so far. He's been under pressure for at least 10 minutes from the Ferrari of Philippe Salaquada, and you know, when your confidence starts to increase and you realize that you're doing a good job and you're dealing with a driver who potentially has got a quicker combination than the one that you're driving, or is a quicker combination than McLaren and de Moustier, but the Ferrari not able to do anything down the straight into turn 15. If the Ferrari was quicker, it ought to be quicker off turn 14 and get the run, but that isn't happening.
Benjamin Lariche behind in the Ford GT, a couple of laps down, and then we've got this continuing battle over 4th place as well. Castellacci, and there you can see Jarvis ahead of Basseng, and now Basseng is going to come under pressure from Laurence Vanthoor. Just to keep you abreast of what's going on in GT3, it's still Niamarim leading that with the 177 Esther Ferrari of Alexander Scriabin behind him in 2nd place, and then the 2nd Esther Ferrari is in 3rd place as well.
Oh, contact, and the McLaren has been spun around, so Gregoire de Moustier did get tagged in the end by Philippe Salaquada, and that was a disappointment. They didn't need to do that, but maybe frustration on the part of Salaquada. Had enough of running behind the McLaren, and there was contact. Let's look again and see. The Ferrari's going to try and launch itself down the inside. It's only halfway along the car. That is what I would describe as an avoidable incident. He wasn't sufficiently far up to claim the corner. De Moustier rightly took his line. I wonder, will there be any penalty to Salaquada for that move?
Well, we saw a very similar, not incident because they didn't come together, but the previous lap, Salaquada had a little feint towards the inside there at turn 4. De Moustier had come across very quickly to shut the door, but nothing happened that time. But this time they made contact, and so Philippe Salaquada now been to 2nd position, but as John says, that will be under investigation, I have no doubt, by the race stewards. Still 2nd and 3rd place. It's not an absolute catastrophe, and there's more contact. Round goes Nicky Pastorelli, pushed into a spin by Castellacci. The AF Corsa obviously got on the radio and gone, oh, just push him out of the way, lads.
Well, I mean, there's incidents that 2 Ferraris involved, one with the McLaren, one with the Mercedes. Nicky Pastorelli is looking to find where reverse gear is, so let's look again at that one. This time the Ferrari was just slightly further up of Castellacci, but nonetheless, you know,
there was plenty of room on the inside.
There was. It's a difficult call. That one is less clear-cut in my view, but both of them will certainly be reviewed by the stewards, unless they choose to call them racing incidents, which I somehow doubt.
No, what I mean by more room on the inside was that there was no need, I suppose, for Castellacci to be that wide into the side of the 37 car, but it's always difficult to control cars in these slippery conditions, so the stewards will have a look as they come across the line. Then this all means that for the moment Stef Dusseldorp is still leading in the No.1 Hexis McLaren. Philippe Salaquada now is in 2nd place in the AF Corsa Ferrari. 3rd is Gregoire de Moustier. 4th is Francesco Castellacci. 5th now is the WRT Audi of Oliver Jarvis, and Vanthoor's got past Basseng as well.
Now the Castellacci, the 4th place Ferrari, is only 6 seconds behind the 3rd place McLaren of Gregoire de Moustier. So it's 6 minutes remaining and 6 seconds to go, 2nd a lap. It's certainly attainable.
It certainly is, if Castellacci can find the kind of pace that Philippe Salaquada had earlier on as they come into the double left-hander. Philippe Salaquada, the Czech driver who was hoping for a dry weekend. If he finishes in 2nd, they'll be fairly happy with a wet weekend, because I think that might be their best championship race result of the season so far. Yes, it will be. They had a 3rd in the championship race at Zolder, and they've won the qualifying race at the Slovakia ring, but they've yet to have a 2nd or better in a championship race in 2012. there is Francesco Castellacci. This is going to be the lap to see how much he's managed to close in then. He was 6 seconds behind. He is now 4 seconds behind, and he's just set the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, Francesco Castellacci.
Well,
1 minute 50.926.
That third place, currently held by Grégoire de Moustier in McLaren number 2, is certainly under threat with 5 minutes remaining. As long as traffic doesn't come into play for Castellacci and he gets a clear run at the third place McLaren, we could have a battle for that final podium position between McLaren and Ferrari.
Here's a look at the lap times that the Ferrari has been taking out. Obviously that 5 second margin wasn't really representative because de Moustier had been punted round. Down through turn 8 then, the lights flashing on de Moustier's car, presumably in the direction of Philippe Salaquada, to say I'm not particularly impressed with that, but here comes the man on the move, Francesco Castellacci, closing in on de Moustier quickly.
And I just wonder, this Ferrari, it's struggling. It's a problem.
Yeah, because
Salaquada has pulled over, McLaren has gone through.
Unless, we'll wait and see, unless they told him to move over. No, it is a problem. You're dead right. You're dead right. This is a real problem.
Not again.
I know you hate to hear it, but you're right, John. The number 3 Ferrari has run into technical problems by the looks of things. Philippe Salaquada going very slowly indeed. And after a strong race performance from them, really, bit of a rude move up into second place, but they were definitely in third on their own merit. The AF Corsa Ferrari is going to be struggling, so all of a sudden McLaren are back to potentially being in a 1-2 situation, but now the battle between Castellacci and de Moustier becomes over second place.
Yes, and there we can see Enzo Eid, the young Belgian driver. And I mean, he's actually 47, but he looks 14. And I keep saying to him, when are you going to grow up? And he looks a bit like a mad.
Into the pits then comes Salaquada. And I fear, well, even if this isn't the end of their race, it's the end of their race in any meaningful sense. They're not going to be picking up any points now. Shakes of the head on board the AF Corsa pit wall.
No obvious indication, nothing like it's a mechanical issue in terms of suspension when the contact occurred. So it must be then something more electronic. Most likely it'll be an electronic issue. Hydraulics are a smaller part of these cars. You can hear the carbon brakes, it's coming screeching to a halt. So looking under the engine cover, we'll take the thing off, mate, and have a proper look.
Out of the car comes.
Now it's over. He's out of the car. He knows there's nothing left. And whatever it is in the engine bay. Electronic control or pneumatic control, but certainly that car lost pace very, very quickly indeed. There we see it pulling over and letting Grégoire de Moustier take back the second place that he was sort of pushed out of. And in fact, the sister car to that, the number 4 of Castellacci, will also come into view very shortly and will take the final podium position with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go.
So just over 2 minutes to go here at Moscow Raceway, the debut weekend in Russia for the FIA GT1 World Championship. We're looking at Oliver Jarvis, who's now all of a sudden finding himself in 4th position. Up in front, the Ferrari has just set his fastest lap of the race so far. There is Ni Amarim, who we were mentioning earlier on in the Team Nova driver car. They had great success the last time out in Portimao at their home event. They managed to pick up a second place, which absolutely delighted them. But Ni Amarim here looks as though he's going to pick up the race win. Him and Cesar Campanico in the all-Portuguese Team Nova driver. So there have been an agreement made by the stewards, and there will be a 30-second time penalty to cars 3 and 4, the 2 AF Corsa Ferrari cars, for causing collisions. Well, not a huge surprise there, John.
No, I'm not. I mean, the stewards would certainly look at them because they were, in my opinion, and the stewards have concurred with that, avoidable incidents. If you're going to pass, certainly the first one, the Salaquada one, was the more marginal of the two, but the stewards have taken a view that they were both avoidable incidents, and they don't encourage driving where you do see contact. But here is this battle for second place, and Grégoire de Moustier got 45 seconds. He may not get the checkered flag on this lap.
Yeah, this is the penultimate lap, I think. Because
well, it just depends what the leader is.
Yeah, Dusseldorp is 20 seconds up the road, so I'm pretty sure that we're going to get one more lap out of this one. We'll keep an eye out the window. Here comes Dusseldorp.
Yeah,
so yeah.
should have one more lap. Comes into turn 15, the final corner. But we will certainly see him go across the line. He'll have about 12, 15 seconds before... There we go, final lap, 15 seconds.
Final lap of the race then begins. Stef Dusseldorp in the lead of the race. And here is the continuing battle, though, for second place. It's not ultimately over second place, but I wonder if they've told Philippe Salaquada here exactly the situation, because maybe they'll just get him to try and push as hard as he can as he starts the final lap to try and find a way past Grégoire de Moustier. But whatever happens, the position that Salaquada in the number 3 AF Corsa Ferrari is in now, he won't be in come the final classifications. We're not going to see him on the podium. Here's a look at his incident again, or Castellacci's incident again, sorry. And, yeah, sorry, it was Francesco Castellacci we were looking at there. I apologise, not Philippe Salaquada. He's brought his AF Corsa Ferrari into the pits into retirement. So just for clarification, Dusseldorp leads de Moustier second, Castellacci in third place. There he is, the battle over second place going on. So even if Castellacci makes it through, he won't be finishing on the podium because he has a 30-second time penalty. Through turn 8, down into turn 9. So this is going to be a nice little battle. It's ultimately irrelevant unless the two come together and de Moustier ends up in the wall or something. But it's this man, Stef Dusseldorp, who looks all set to win the championship race and haul himself and his teammate Fred Makowiecki back into contention, because Mark Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock are going to pick up, I would suggest, 10 points. So I think we're going to have Winkelhock, we're going to have Vita Vaughan and Orlinkel at the top of the championship, joint on points. But Stef Dusseldorp wins the championship race here in Moscow Raceway, and that moves him into championship contention as well, along with his teammate Fred Makowiecki. It's going to be a 1-2 as well for McLaren. They had one at Navarra back in May. They're going to have one here as well. Down into the final corner comes Grégoire de Moustier. It was a 1-2 in the qualifying race in Navarra. It's a 1-2 where it matters here in the championship race. Brilliant stuff from McLaren and the Hexis team. Fred Makowiecki's always beaming, but he's beaming even more here. Third place across the line is the 4.58 of Castellacci, but I think we're actually going to see Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stipler on the championship race podium, ahead of Laurence Vanthor and Stefano Telli. And then in 5th place will be that Mercedes-Benz SLS, I think, once it's all panned out. But here comes Nii Amorim, driving the Team Nova driver Audi R8. There's the Vita Vaughan Racing team cars behind. What a sorry, sorry day it's been for them. Sorry, sorry weekend. But Nii Amorim and Cesar Campanico about to take their first FIA GT3 European Championship win of the season. The Portuguese flags out on the pit wall by the checker flag. They're going to be delighted with that. That's going to help their championship position as well. But look at those BMWs. Across the line they come. 8th place for the 18 car of Bartels and Berman. That may become 7th. Let me just look at the standings. If Castellacci gets 30 seconds, he's going to be 55 seconds back. So that means he will finish in 6th place overall, that Ferrari. So that means that it will be a 7th place for Berman and Bartels once we remove the Team Nova driver car. So we'll get the full classifications for you in a few moments' time. But Stef Dusseldorp did a great job, actually. Fred Makowiecki, possibly the recognised team leader in that car, but Dusseldorp is by no means a slow driver. And he has been very impressive so far this season. He was impressive last season as well with Hexis. And there's Nii Amorim, GT3 European Championship winner of this round. The Hexis team running up. Someone's taken Stef's hat for him, you can see there. Unless it's not Stef's hat, he just stolen it potentially. And Nii Amorim will be delighted with that. But into the pit lane comes Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makowiecki. Their 2nd championship race win of the season after Navarra. and this is definitely moving them back into title contention. Look how important this is to them. Absolutely delighted, the Hexis team. And now the cheers for Grégoire de Moustier as well. He's thrilled with that. The whole team is thrilled with that. We had a strong performance, an almost 1-2 in Slovakia from the BMWs, but McLaren have been able to pull it off here. Third place, Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler. They'll be pleased with that. Possibly a little bit surprised to have been shepherded into the Parc Fermé area as the rest of the teams and crew make their way down the pit lane to celebrate the top three and the podium presentation and ceremony that will then follow on. You can see Dusseldorp now with his helmet off, being congratulated. So Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makowiecki are race winners. They have moved themselves now back into championship contention, and there with John Watson.
Fred Makowiecki, how tough was that out there today?
Yeah, it's really great for us, especially after the race of Slovakia. We're coming back for the championship, and it was a really hard condition, especially with the tire. It was difficult to find a good pressure, and sometimes we can be really fast, sometimes we are really slow, and the window is really close, she really little, and we must work on this, but really thank you McLaren and Hexis. They did a great job. Excellent, Fred. Steph, you did a stunning job taking over for a great job that Frank had done. What was your story?
Yeah, he did an amazing start, and he took the first position, and at least after Alvaro, and you know, we did a great pit stop again. I overtook Greg while he was struggling with the temperature, and I think after this it was just going, create a little gap, and driving home to P1 and score a lot of points again.
Well done, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So, the FIA GT1 World Championship race in Russia at the Moscow Raceway, some 80 kilometers outside of the capital, has ended with Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makowiecki taking the victory in front of the Russian fans. Second place then, completing a perfect weekend for McLaren, Grégoire de Moustier and Alvaro Parent there with John.
Alvaro, before the race I said, why is the McLaren no good in the rain? You proved it's great.
Well, yeah, before the race we were speaking, and I told you that we had a great car in the first race, and we had an even better one in the second, you know. So the first stint was great. I was faster than everyone by a lot. So now I'm really happy, you know, for the team, my teammate and McLaren. So we were a lot faster and very competitive. Everyone's working hard, and it's working.
I thought you were selling me the corporate line. Grégoire, you did a great job under a lot of pressure, and even got punted off at one stage by a Ferrari.
Yeah, it was a hard fight with the Ferrari. I have a good fun. Alvaro did the job. I just had to keep the place. So I'm very happy for everybody. We work well, so it's a good weekend for us.
And good for your confidence.
Yeah, good for my confidence.
Well done.
So the McLaren Hexis team move on to the next round, which is at the Nürburgring in a couple of weeks' time with renewed confidence. Let's hear then from Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler, probably not expecting to be here.
Oliver, was that a result or was that a result?
Yeah, you know, we're pleased with that. I said we were going to go out and, you know, have some fun and take some risks. Difficult conditions, but, you know, to come away with another podium, that's a good weekend for us.
Excellent. Frank, what's your view?
It was very difficult in the beginning because we went out with too low tire pressure, but the crew did a tremendous job because we had some heavy gearbox problems in the first run, and we lost some time. And in between the two races, they changed the gearbox, and it was really tight with everything, but they did it really together, and it was good enough for podium today.
Excellent on the podium. A good haul of points. Well done, guys.
Thanks very much.
So Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler will now make their way up to the podium after finishing third here at the Moscow Raceway. Let's have a look at the classified results. It was a win by Dusseldorp and Makowiecki by some 25 seconds over their teammate. McLaren 1-2, Audi 3-4. The Ferrari AF Corsa machine, as I suggested, has now been put down into 6th position. Not a bad result for Winkelhock and Basseng. I think that will move them level on points at the top of the championship. We'll get that confirmation in a few seconds' time. Eden Castellacci in 6th. Berman and Bartels finishing in 7th place, so it won't actually, will it? Because Berman and Bartels picked up a couple of points, so that means they will still hold on to the lead of the championship. Valander and Salaquada retiring with 3 laps to go. After a very entertaining race here in Moscow. The conditions certainly helped, but we were expecting a decent race in the dry, but in the wet it turned into a bit of a thriller. Plenty of action going on all the way throughout the order. And here's how the Drivers' Championship looks. It is a 6-point advantage now at the top, so it's definitely come down a distinct amount, and then it's only 17 points from 1st to 3rd. So, as I say, Dusseldorp and Makowiecki unquestionably have moved themselves back into title contention with only 2 rounds to go after this one. Ortelli and Van Thor 4th in the championship. Jaeger and Pastorelli dropped to 5th. Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler move up into 6th position in the FIA GT1 Drivers' World Championship. Podium presentation will be underway in a few seconds' time. You see 3 of the top 4 drivers in the Drivers' Championship are Germans. It's been a good year so far for the Germans in GT1. And it's no different in the Teams' Championship. Al Inkel still lead and have extended their lead over Vita for one this weekend. It's now getting very tight between Belgian Audi Club and Hexis Racing in the battle over 3rd place. AF Corsa ending up in 5th position in the championship at the moment. They're some way behind Hexis in front of them. So we're about to get the podium presentation ceremony underway here in Moscow. This is the 3rd major event that the Moscow Raceway has held. Had World Series by Renault earlier on this season. Had World Superbikes only last weekend, but now it's got an FIA GT1 World Championship coming to it. Onto the top step of the podium come Fred Makowiecki and Stef Dusseldorp for Hexis McLaren. 2nd place, their teammates Alvaro Parent and Grégoire de Moustier. And in 3rd position, Oliver Jarvis and Frank Stippler. Great result for them. Their first championship race podium since Nogaro in the very opening round of the season. And there is the Hexis representative. And now, in honour of the Hexis Racing team, we will have the French national anthem here at the end of a brilliant Russian race. So congratulations to Hexis Racing in general. Dusseldorp and Makowiecki 17 points behind in the championship with 4 races at 2 rounds still to go. It's definitely not all over for them, which they may have feared after their torrid weekend 2 weeks ago in the Slovakia ring. There are the trophies for Frank Stippler and Oliver Jarvis. Some silverware as well for Grégoire de Moustier and Alvaro Parent. And the important trophies going to Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makowiecki, their 2nd championship race win of the season. Fred Makowiecki is now one of the most winning drivers in GT1 history. After picking up a couple of wins with Mark VDS Ford last year, this is his 2nd win of this season with Hexis McLaren. Vyacheslav Karabanov handing out the trophies. He's the head of the Valo-Kolman region of Moscow. And now they will pose for a few photographs on the top step of the podium. After the most successful weekend for the MP4-12C, I would say. It picked up 2 race wins in Navarra, but it didn't come home with the 1-2 that it so craved. Here it has, and as the champagne is sprayed, it's a celebratory weekend for Hexis Racing and the McLaren MP4-12C. It's been a torrid weekend. It feels strange we're not talking about Orlinkel or Vita for One. Neither of them are on the podium, which is a very strange feeling indeed, even though the two of them are still leading the Drivers' Championships with Bartels and Berman and Winkelhock and Basseng respectively. They are still up there at the top, but this weekend it's all about Hexis. The battle resumes though in 3 weeks' time. The French team may have had the advantage here, but the Germans will be looking to impress when we go to the Nürburgring in 3 weeks. The home race for Vita for One and Orlinkel. And they're going to be looking to perform strongly there, no doubt, in front of their home crowd, the home circuit, the Nürburgring, where that Marc Basseng in particular knows so well after having success there in the Nürburgring 24 hours earlier this year. Obviously that was the full Nordschleife version of the circuit for the 24-hour race, but nevertheless I'm pretty sure he knows his way around the shortened Grand Prix loop as well that we will be using in 3 weeks' time. And there you can see the top 3 cars down there in the pit lane after an entertaining race. Here's a look at the results then. One more time, 25 seconds the winning margin. There you can see Orlinkel in 5th and 8th. They'll be disappointed with that, I've no doubt. Couldn't find the pace in the wet conditions, with Audi in 3rd and 4th place. 6th place is the Ferrari 458 AF Corsa. Enzo Eden Castellacci penalised 30 seconds. On the road they finished in 3rd place, but after causing that collision with Nicky Pastorelli, they are relegated down into 6th place, ironically still ahead of Thomas Jaeger and Nicky Pastorelli, so I don't think Alinka will be best pleased with that. I don't think Alinka will be best pleased either with the way that Thomas Jaeger forced Marc Basseng off the road. Here's a look at the GT3 results then for confirmation. Team Nova drivers taking the win, just under 10 seconds clear of the 2 Ester Motorsports Ferraris. They've had a very successful weekend here. Bassov and Grossman coming in second ahead of Skyrabin and Guido Alessandro. Guido Alessandro has had a very impressive weekend, I have to say, in his debut weekend in FIA GT3. Michael Lyons and Stefano Guy in 4th place, and it was a real struggle for Ardagna Perez and Chiro finishing in 10th position. Harry Proschig and David Mengsdorf retiring on the first lap of the race. So let's have a little look back at this race. It was when the race got underway after being behind the safety car for a decent amount of laps. There was an incident in the first few laps which brought out the safety car. There you can see David Mengsdorf having to retire along with one of the Russian Bears Motorsports Ferraris. So the safety car was deployed. When the safety car came back in, more frantic action developed. In the end, though, it was the McLarens who battled with each other. Fred Makowiecki was on a charge, but Alvaro Parente in the 2 McLaren was absolutely flying. He managed to get past Makowiecki up the inside and then move on to try and attack the race leader. Managed to get the race leader, Marcus Winkelhock, going into turn 9 to take the lead of the race. This was the moment I mentioned. Marc Basseng probably won't be too happy about Thomas Jaeger pushing him off the circuit there, because he lost out to the AF Corsa Ferrari as well. Some great battles in GT3. The Heiko Motorsports crew always seem to struggle in one race of the weekend, and in this race it was this one, because that was a big moment as well for Mika Vähämäki after he'd already had troubles under the safety car. Francesco Castellacci spun Nicky Pastorelli around, and for his troubles he received a 30-second time penalty. The second day, of course, of Ferrari also sent off Alvaro Parent, but what didn't matter because it was a 1-2 for Hexis McLaren. Stef Dusseldorp and Fred Makowiecki winning the race. Alvaro Parent in second place along with Gregoire de Moustier. We're back in 3 weeks at the Nürburgring. Join us then.